welcome to the Fishbowl Radio, everybody. My name is Chief here, and joining me today is the Double J of Juicy and Jalen here live on the Fishbowl Radio here. So listen here. We have a lot to talk about here today. It was Selection Sunday. LSU women's basketball is the number 3 seed. They'll be taking on Rice in their first round matchup here. LSU men's basketball, as well as in the NIT tournament, which was something that is going to be improvement for LSU men's basketball team so far. Then we'll get to the diamond sports of LSU baseball and LSU softball and Louisiana Ragin Cajun baseball and softball. How well did they do this weekend, and what can we expect for these teams in the future? So let's talk about the big elephant in the room. NCAA tournament time, March Madness. Let's get down into it. LSU women's basketball taking on Rice here. LSU is the defending national champion. They entered the NCAA tournament as 3 seed, which is very eerily similar to what happened last year. And if you remember what happened last year, they started as a 3 seed and took it all the way to a national championship. So without further ado, let me introduce you to the guys here. Juicy and Jalen, how y'all doing today, guys?
We're good, man. How you doing?
Chief, I'm doing pretty good, pretty good. It's another great day to talk sports right here on the Fishbowl.
Well, I'm doing very well, guys. I'm glad you could join me here on this lovely edition of this week's Fishbowl Radio podcast. So anyway, I'm going to start with you, Juicy. LSU women's basketball starting at 3 seed, taking on Rice. What is some things here? Last year Poa coming back from her injury. It looks like she's gonna be ready for the first game of the NCAA tournament. What are some things you think that having her on the court can do for LSU women's basketball team as they journey along in the NCAA tournament?
Oh, Poa, she's real crucial, especially like last year's run in the NCAA tournament. Like she was clutch for them. Everybody can remember that shot she made for the national championship game, but towards the end of the game, it was terrible that the injury happened the way it did, but she really can bring some spark, and she really is kind of like that unsung hero. I would call her their offense. She's just she really, I guess you could say, she just helps to bring the fire. I guess you could put it for her, but it's exciting that she's back, and I can't wait to see what this year's NCAA tournament's gonna have in store.
All right, Jalen, what you think about this LSU women's basketball team here? They're in the same spot they were last year. What is something that they have to do better, Jalen? You think that for them to capture this title away from South Carolina, because South Carolina looks like they're the favorite to win this title this year. What do they have to do to get to the end here? They're kind of in a tough part of the bracket. You got Iowa in there as well, and UCLA in that part of the bracket. What does LSU have to do to repeat as national champions do this NCAA tournament run?
Honestly, with your Chief, I think number one, they need to play the best defense that they played all year. And I know that on the offensive side of the ball, you have people like Angel Reese can score the ball. Michaela Williams, she'll shoot it. Haley Van Lith, she'll shoot it. I think they have a lot of scorers. Then you add with Reese, with Morrow on the getting the offensive boards. But I think it works. I think for this team to repeat as champions, they need to get better defensively. And if they can turn up their defense, and like you said, these big games. I mean, you have the team they beat last year for the championship, Iowa, right there, number 1 seed. You know, who was also on this side of the bracket, 5th seed Colorado, who was the first team to beat this brand new LSU women's team at the beginning of the year. So, I mean, I wouldn't sleep on Rice either. The Tigers matchup in this game. So you just never know. But I think defensively is where they need to start. And I'm not saying they played great defense all year, but this time of year, tournament, one game, you lose, you're out. All the pressure's on this team because not only are they the defending champions, but also because they added all these pieces, and a lot of people see them as this all-star team who should win again. So that's where it starts, but we'll see how far this team can get.
Yeah, so South Carolina is the they're one of the best 3-point shooting teams in the country and rebounding in that. So they look like I said, they look like they're very poised to win those kind of games here. But I've been looking at their two games they played against LSU because to be the best, you got to beat the best, right? Right now, LSU is the national champion until that national championship games played for women's basketball, so they have the right to defend their title. Toughest thing I've seen in sports is to repeat here, but looking at the numbers, if you look at both South Carolina and LSU, South Carolina beat LSU twice. Now, there's one thing: if they meet up again at any point during this tournament, it is very tough, no matter what sport you play, to beat a team three different times in one season. It's tough to do it in the NFL. It's tough to do it in Major League Baseball. It's tough to do it in the NBA. It's extremely tough to do it in any sport, especially whenever you're playing like the top tier competition, basically. So with their first game against South Carolina, January 25th game, like we've recapped before here, South Carolina shot 47.7%, LSU shot 44. 2-point land, South Carolina was at 53, LSU was at 49. 3-point shooting, South Carolina was at 35, LSU 33. It's very small numbers of difference between these two teams. Like LSU shot the ball more in that game than South Carolina, but South Carolina was more accurate. They ended up making the same amount of goals here. Rebounding wise, South Carolina did get more defensive rebounds, but LSU did get one more offensive rebound that game. In the second game, and the turnovers here, so they each had 12 in that game. If you go back to the last game they had, South Carolina had 11 block shots on LSU. LSU only had 3. That's very big in terms of momentum. It can change the momentum of a game very much. So, uh, free throw land, South Carolina made 84%, LSU made 80. LSU shot one more free throw than them. 3-point land, LSU outshot South Carolina in that one. South Carolina took 23-point shots. They made 7 of them. LSU made 6 out of their 14 for 42% from the floor, from the beyond the arc. On the floor, LSU went 25 of 67. South Carolina went 28 for 65. South Carolina was at 43 for that. LSU had 37. So very small differences in the total amount of shots between both these teams here. Now, if LSU were to play like kind of tougher defenses, and then sometimes they'll like lapse in defenses, there'll be some people that'll get open against them and they'll make their shots. You can't do that against really good competition here. I think they're gonna beat Rice in this first round game. It'll be interesting to see. Like you got Louisville in that next game they might possibly play, which is Haley Van Lint's old team that she transferred from. So that'll be interesting to see how that happens there with them. I think they will end up playing Louisville. So it's gonna be one of those to kind of look at and see. But I got LSU beating Rice and advancing. And who y'all got, Jalen and Juicy? We'll start with you, Juicy. Who you picking in that game?
Yeah, I'm gonna pick LSU. I think I mean, kudos to Rice. You know, they've had a pretty good season, but I think LSU's just gonna I think LSU just has better talent all around, more depth. I take LSU in this one.
Jalen, who you taking in that game?
Yeah, I'm going to take the Tigers in this game against Rice, and then, like you said, Chief, that'll be a great matchup right there for LSU taking on Louisville, which would be Haley
I'd
Van
love to
Lith,
see that.
old school. So I would love to see that.
Yeah, that'll be kind of like one that makes like the whole transfer portal thing. We're gonna really see it in a postseason atmosphere, how it really affects everybody because it's affected probably it's affected all the sports, but basketball you get a higher chance of meeting up with your team that you went against. Now, looking at LSU men's basketball here as we move along here, they made it to the NIT tournament. They're taking on North Texas here, so it's a step in the right direction. Would you say, Juicy?
I would say so. I mean, considering they went 2-16 in conference play last year, you know, didn't have any kind of postseason play, nothing. Uh, I would say going 9-9 in conference play. They even won a game in the conference tournament this year. Making it to the NIT, I'd say it's a huge step forward. I mean, we say it on the show all the time. All we can do is do better than you did the year before, and that's all we can ask for.
What you thinking, Jalen, about this LSU men's basketball team making it to the NIT this year?
I think it's a huge deal, especially McMahon being, the new coach on the block at LSU. I think he had a lot of young players, like honestly, a brand new team. Bringing back Jalen Cook. I mean, for them to make the NIT, I think it was successful because a lot of people, I honestly didn't think they would make the NIT the way the team played this year. But I think getting them late wins against teams like Kentucky really helped their resume for them to get in the NIT. And I think they have a great matchup against North Texas. And don't forget, North Texas won the NIT last year. So, I mean, for LSU to get in there and knock them out in the first round, I mean, that's some momentum that could propel them to the NIT championship.
So LSU had a net ranking of 94 and an RPI of 121. North Texas is kind of similar to that regard in terms of rankings of net and RPI. Their net ranking is 79. RPI is 119. North Texas is 5-5 in their last 10 games here. And if you're looking at quadrant records with RPI and net, so within that, they're 0-6 in the quadrant one games, 2-4 in quadrant two. Looking at LSU though, they're not looking as, I guess you would say, as good as North Texas resume wise. And like Jalen said, they won the NIT last year. North Texas knows how to win these kind of things here. It'll be very tough here for me to pick against North Texas. They're defending their NIT championship basically. To be four, the LSU is 4-8 in quadrant one, and net rankings 1-6 in quadrant two. So I'm gonna go with I just don't think LSU quite has the pieces all together. They're gonna play well. I think it'll be a very close game, but I got North Texas beating LSU in the first round of the NIT tournament. Who you got in that game, Juicy?
Oh, I hate to say, but I think I agree with you. I think it's been a heck of a turnaround for LSU this season. But to be the best, you got to beat the best, like we just said earlier. I'm gonna give the benefit to the defending NIT champions. I'm gonna go at North Texas now. I hope LSU wins. I hope they do, and I'll be glad if they pull it off. But like you said, it's gonna be close. But I'm gonna give it to North Texas.
Who you got, Jalen, in that game between LSU and North Texas?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with both y'all also. I think the defending NIT champs North Texas takes this one. But like Juicy said, I hope the Tigers do pull it off. I hope they make a deep run because the more games they win is NIT, I think that'll help them end their season off well and going into the next year with these same players with but having more experience under Matt McMahon.
All right, we're walking off the hardwood now. We're heading into the diamond here. We're going to talk about Louisiana Raging Cajuns softball team here, and this is going to be kind of overlapping here. But before we get to the softball team here, we're going to talk about baseball here because I think it's kind of important to kind of mention Rage Cajun baseball team before the softball team because we're going to kind of overlap a little bit. Of course, there's a big matchup this weekend between LSU and the Raging Patriots, but we're going to say that for a little on later on in the show here. So, um, the Cajuns won the series against Arkansas State. They dropped game one, 8-11. Then they won 7-6. Then 8-5 over Arkansas State today. Then they play Southern, McNeese, Old Dominion in a 3-game series. Old Dominion's in 3-game series. So they got the next 5 games. It's gonna be a lot of action-packed game for this week here. Southern is 3-11. McNeese is 8-8. Old Dominion is 12-8 here. I think the Cajuns actually, I think they'll end up beating McNeese again this year. Um, I think they'll get these 2 midweek games. They're 11-8 so far. The Cajuns here, they're 6-4 in their last 10. So I think the Cajuns can make a really big comeback here and start winning these games here and really put the pressure on. I got them taking both those games here. But here's the thing, though. The Cajuns need to work on their fielding and their pitching. They're allowing too many runners get on base at the right time. Then they're having to rely on their hitting here. Like this past weekend, the Cajuns gave up. You out 11 plus 6 plus 5. You know what you have when you have that? 22 runs scored against you in a 3-game series compared to if you look at what they had basically 18 runs against Tulane scored against them. So even when they played in like Texas, which like two top 10 teams. They gave up 25 runs in that 3 game stretch they had there. It's tough to win games whenever you're having to score a lot of runs like that, like the Houston game. They scored 10 runs, still lost the ball game. So the Cajuns, the pitching was supposed to be improved this year. I haven't seen it so far. I think the Cajuns need to work on better as they're getting started off with their starting pitchers and being able to. Sometimes they leave guys in there a little bit too long, I feel, in my opinion. And, it's not to talk bad about Deggs or anybody else, but just sometimes when the guys like, you can throw a lot of arms in there, 3 innings. If you don't really have a solid starter, you can get around it with your relievers and stuff. You don't have to lead them in there for 3 or 4 innings every single time. But you have to be worried about your bullpen, though. So we'll see what happens with that there. I think they'll take the games against Southern and McNeese. And I think they'll take the series against Old Dominion. But I got concerns about their fielding and their pitching it is the first Sun Belt series. Hopefully they'll get better as the summer months come alive and the pitching can hopefully get better. But just got some concerns with the Rage Cajun baseball team. But what you thinking, Jalen, as we go into these next 5 games for the Rage Cajun baseball team?
Yeah, I'm thinking after dropping the first one against Arkansas State, but winning the series by winning game 2 and 3. I think it builds the Cajuns like some momentum. I think like you said before, Chief, they have the hitters, they have the talent. I think, like you said, the pitching, needs to be a little bit better. But as far as the matchup against Southern, that should be a win. McNeese should be a win, and I think they'll honestly sweep Old Dominion before they have to take on Grambling after that. So Cajuns have a good stretch of in-state competition, but at the same time they're playing a Sun Belt series uh against Old Dominion, like right in the middle of that. So I think they should pile up some wins and get all that momentum going into their next Sun Belt task, which is in San Marcos against Texas State. So I think the back end of March, the schedule is looking pretty good for the Cajuns. You just gotta see if they can keep it up.
Well, the one good thing about today, the Cajuns made 3 errors and they didn't lose the game. So look, they came alive in the 6th and got 3 runs. 8-5. They out hit Arkansas State almost every single game except for their first game. They had 12 hits and they had 8 runs and 1 error. But Arkansas State, normally they're not really good at baseball, but they might be a lot better this year. They're 12-9 so far, basically. But we'll see what happens there. What you thinking, Juicy, about the Cajuns' upcoming schedule with Southern, McNeese, and Old Dominion?
Yeah, I mean, like Jalen said, yes, it's pretty. Excuse me, it's pretty favorable for UL. I mean, with the struggles they have, like the pitching, the field, but a lot of that's just a lot of mistakes on defense seems to be just like overthinking. But the hitting's been great. But if you're gonna give up, I'm just kind of reiterating what you said a little bit. But if you give up a lot of base runners or people get on base when you commit errors, rallies always start. A rally always starts by somebody that gets on base that's not supposed to get on base. So, I mean, the main thing is they need to clean up the errors. The pitching's got to get under control a little bit. But offense wise, I mean, they can beat anybody. So, if you ask me, I think they'll win 4 out of the 5 games coming up, as if they can get their pitching calm down some, but the hitting gives them a chance to win 4 out of the next 5 games for sure.
Yeah, so I'm kind of leaning towards. I think they'll take 2 against Old Dominion. I think they'll drop one of those games here. It's going to be at home. So, I mean, look, the Cajuns are going to have like a 6 game home stretch. They're going to have like Southern, McNeese, and Old Dominion and all Grambling. All those games going to be at home. 6 straight games at home. What better place to start a winning streak than, or like continue a winning streak than at home? Excuse me on that. But, and have an 8 game winning streak when you go on the road in San Marcos against Texas State, which is one of the more premier Sun Belt baseball programs in the top half of the conference for sure. So we'll see what happens. It's gonna be fun, and we'll just see how it all goes for everybody here. So And with that, here we'll go switch it over to LSU baseball. Kind of covered them too as well. So tonight was not the night for LSU. I mean, well, today wasn't the day for LSU baseball. Um, very tough. They got 10-run ruled. 15-5 loss to Mississippi State. Mississippi State won 2 of their 3 games in that series here. They won the Friday night and the Sunday matchup here. LSU was able to squeak out a win against them Saturday night 8. Juicy, what has been the problem with LSU's baseball team during this series?
This series has been the pitching for sure. Even Luke Holman, who is had the number one starter, he was got roughed up Friday night. The offense has just been so sporadic. Like they had, let's see, they had scored like I had like a 2 inning stretch. I'm trying to remember Friday. I don't remember the box score. I saw it. Like they had scored like 6 runs in the first 2 or 3 innings, and they didn't score another one until towards the end of the game. No, it was 10-4. I'm sorry, that was the score was Friday.
Are you talking about
Uh,
Saturday?
no, Friday. No, Saturday. Oh, I hadn't even got to Saturday yet. I'm frustrated about that. I was trying to get through Friday. Uh, but all the runs have come in bunches, basically, like in an inning, couple innings, and they don't score the rest of the game. Like Saturday, they scored. They opened up the first 3 innings, scored 9 runs, did not score a single run the rest of the 6 innings, and barely held on to win that one, which they should have lost that game, but they won it. And then today, well, it was just another pitching. It was just pitching debacle. The pitching's killed them. The offense has been sporadic for LSU this year. They just haven't found their groove yet from last year. It just seems out of sync right now for LSU baseball.
Jalen, what you thinking about LSU's pitching and defense so far in this season and including this Mississippi State series?
I think it's kind of like what Juicy said. I mean, they lost the first game by 6. Should have lost the second one, but they snuck out a win. And in the game 3, I mean, it was just a blowout. I mean, they lost by 10 runs. They didn't score a run until the 5th inning, but even when they scored those 3, they let Mississippi State get 4 in the 5th inning, 5 in the 6th inning. So at that point, it's just like you're trying to play the comeback kid, and it just wasn't happening. They didn't really have a great series against Mississippi State, which is, being a fan of the baseball team. It's like, okay, well, it's our first, conference series, and this is how we, come out and play. I mean, if they don't start playing better defensively, it's not gonna look good for this LSU baseball team. I know they got games coming up against Louisiana Tech, and then they have their series against Florida at the box. But I mean, it's only gonna get harder from here. So they just need to figure some things out.
The scary stat about this, I don't think a lot of people have talked about here, is the amount of runs altogether in 3 games. Okay, so LSU gave up 33 runs on 41 hits. That's a lot of
Yeah,
hits.
the
That's a
pitching
lot of hits
is
to give up in just in general. So you take 33 runs, you average out in 3 games, you're giving up 11 runs in a 3-game series per game. That's a lot. That is a extremely a lot. I don't care how good of a hitting team that you have. If you score in 10 runs in each 30 of those games here, for instance, you could have the best hitting team, but great pitching will always beat the best hitting teams. We've seen it basically last year when LSU was making a run through the Color Bowl series. When Paul Skeens was in the game, kind of shut down, teams that he played against and during that postseason run. And giving up 41 hits, it's not looking too good for you. Like I said, the hardest thing to do in sports is repeat. I've said that before, and this is kind of what we're seeing ourselves at here. So, LSU, like during that 3 games here, they give like 13 and a half hits basically in these 3 games here. So I'm really worried about the. I think the bats will come alive. I mean they're scoring enough with the bats to win games. Okay, that is a. But like you, Juicy, you said it best. They come in bunches and like sporadic. Like take the Saturday game and the Sunday game today. You look at the two. Even the Friday game, they had a 3-run inning in the third, and then the Saturday game they had a 3-run inning in the first. Second 2-run inning in the second, 4-run inning in the third. Then they just scored the rest of that game. And the Sunday, they had a 3-run inning in the fifth and a 2-run inning in the sixth. So they're scoring enough to win you games if you got good pitching. If you have good pitching, they probably win this series. They have, 2 or 3 good pitch. They probably win this series against Mississippi State here. If you had like a Paul Skeens or like one or
We
two of those
knew
guys out there.
we 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 kind of. It's not too surprising the pitching is the issue because I mean it's hard to. You still have to figure it out, especially with with pitchers like Paul Skeens last year. It's real hard to follow that act, and then we all talked about the pitching, like even like last year. I remember we talked about the pitching a lot, and then all of a sudden the postseason come around, and then the LSU pitching was just like lights out all the way through, which really propelled them to make a run. It's all of a sudden like they came alive. So I mean, it's early. I mean, it's early,
Yeah.
real early. It's just frustrating to see it start like this, but I mean, it's the pitching. I mean, after what happened last year, it's kind of you kind of gotta just
Just roll with it.
it's a tough act to follow from last year.
So LSU, I would say LSU is going to have an easier road in front of them, but this is going to get a lot more difficult here for their next 2 3-game series. You got a 3-game series against Florida in the top 10 of the country, and you got a 3-game series against Arkansas on the road. So, um, looking at it,
Pretty tough,
midweek game
pretty
against
brutal
Louisiana Tech,
schedule.
I think they'll beat Louisiana Tech, and I think they'll. I want to say they'll beat Florida, but it's kind of like I think Florida's got a little bit of a chip on their shoulder for sure from last year because they're thinking about what happened in that final game they played against LSU, and they would
Yeah,
love to embarrass
it can be interesting.
LSU in the front of their home crowd. So I think I think LSU drops a series of Florida. I think they'll win one out of Florida and lose the other two. I'm just very unsure about their pitching. That's what the one thing that's really hurting me. And LSU's fielding is a little suspect at times, but I don't think it's enough to where I think the pitching's a bigger issue for LSU. But I got to win against Louisiana Tech. They give me a Friday night win against Florida and give me 2 losses on Saturday and Sunday. Who you got, Juicy?
I'll give Louisiana Tech. You know, prove me wrong, LSU. I will go them dropping 2 out of 3. It hurts me to say that, but I gotta be. The show's about transparency and honesty and not bias, so I gotta put my feelings aside and not go benefit of the doubt. I just have a feeling that they're gonna drop 2 out of 3. But believe me, I want to be like, well, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt and they win 2 out of 3. I'm just gonna be realistic and think they'll at least win one game and drop two and at least avoid the sweep. Kind of keep themselves in a fairly decent shape in the conference standings early on with a 2-4 conference record instead of like a 1-5 or 0-6 conference record.
Who you got in that game? That series, Jalen?
So I think LSU is going to beat Louisiana Tech, but when it comes to this series against Florida, I think the Tigers will take 2 and 3 against the Gators. I mean, I know they're right there at the box, but I mean, they need to prove that they can not only win a series, but can get these runs, get better pitching. So I think they'll be able to do that against the Gators in this bounce back series. So I think they'll take 2 or 3 against the Gators.
All right, this is a fun one to see. That's going to happen in the box this weekend. So now coming ahead here and moving along here, Louisiana Ragin Cajun softball and LSU softball will be tangling in a duel here in Baton Rouge on Tuesday at 6 p.m. Should be an interesting one. LSU just dropped their first game against Ole Miss. Cajuns are coming off of a sweep against South Alabama. The Cajuns are running a heck of a winning streak they got going on so far since they beat number one Oklahoma. So this will be a good game there. But I'm not too sold on the Cajuns' pitching situation too much here. They've kind of struggled, even though they kind of like, because that South Alabama game, they were tied until they entered. Like that, don't let that score fool you. They had that extras. They just went off and went in the eighth inning and won the whole entire thing. But I got them dropping the game against LSU. They're gonna beat Louisiana Tech, and I think they'll sweep Coastal Carolina at home. Who y'all got? Juicy.
I'm gonna agree with you. I'm gonna say the same thing happens. I'm gonna I'm with you on that one.
All right, what you thinking, Jalen?
I mean, anytime you're playing one of the best teams in the nation, as
Um,
far as
um,
LSU, it's going to be a good one. Ultimately, I think the Cajuns that their win streak will come to an end. But it's crazy how they won. What is it like? I think nine straight, and they started off by beating Oklahoma. I mean, we can't. I think I'm forever talk about that as long as the season's going on. How they beat
Yeah.
Oklahoma, but I guess we moving on past that. I think coming off that series win and they didn't lose a game against South Al, but then LSU, I think they'll take the loss there, but then shake back against Louisiana Tech, and then back to some of the conference play against Coastal
The
Carolina. I think
Cajuns
they'll
are
win all
have
three of
the
those games against Coastal.
yeah, the Cajuns have the top three in strength of schedule, and they have number one non-conference strength of schedule so far this year. So they are very much in that top three category of knowing it. LSU's got a very tough schedule themselves, but they got the number one RPI in the country. So LSU, on the other hand, they got to play a game tomorrow, so it's gonna be kind of a tough one here. They're gonna play Ole Miss Monday. I mean tomorrow. Then they got the Cajun on Tuesday. That's a tough turnaround right there. Then they got a three-game series against Missouri. I think LSU takes care of business against Ole Miss. I know they had the setback tonight. I think they'll beat Ole Miss here. Um, and I think, like I said, I think they'll beat the Cajuns here. But I would not be surprised if they dropped the game to the Cajuns. I would not be surprised if they did. I mean, we know how this rivalry between both these softball programs are. I think, but yeah, like I can see the Tigers getting there being tired after playing. They're gonna be playing a lot of games in a period of like 4 days, like Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and then Tuesday. A lot of games to be played. Then you got Missouri coming up. I think they'll take two or three against Missouri for sure. It'd be tough for them to beat Missouri in a sweep, but they managed to sweep Kentucky and beat Texas. So who knows? I mean, they're getting to the bulk of their schedule. What you thinking, Juicy?
I'm thinking, I think they'll take the series tomorrow with Ole Miss. I think they'll beat. Uh, you said the Cajuns. I'm not seeing them on the schedule unless I'm overlooking. I'm looking down the schedule.
Yeah,
Uh,
they have Ole Miss on the 18th, and they got the Cajun on the 19th.
oh, okay, yeah, I'll overlook that. Yeah, and I think they'll take the game tomorrow. I think they'll take the Cajuns, and honestly, I think they'll sweep Missouri too. I got them winning tomorrow, Cajuns, and then sweeping Missouri. That's my next 5 games.
What you thinking, Jalen?
Yeah, so I'm thinking for this Tigers team, I don't see them taking a loss until I don't see them losing to the Cajuns or Missouri or even when they play Ole Miss in this last game. Even though Ole Miss did defeat them, I still think they're going to take Game 3, win that series. I don't see the Tigers possibly maybe lose another game until the end of the month when they their series with Texas A&M maybe. I mean, I know they lost to Ole Miss, but this Tigers softball team is too good. They have the veteran pieces, great pitching. I think just it's a national championship team right here this year.
Beth
Dang, that's
Tarina,
a bull.
Beth Tarina
That's a
responded to
yeah. I
to
remember
our
the
challenge.
preseason. Juicy was like, "Well, I think they should have let her go," but I mean, she must have heard you very good, Juicy.
She had.
She, I mean, to rattle off 24 straight wins like that's very impressive anyway.
I
But
did not
but,
expect that. Honest to God, I did not expect the season to start like that.
yeah, so I mean, look, that's what makes sports so great. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see what happens with the LSU's got really good defense, and that's what I think their biggest improvement from last year to this year. Their offense isn't the greatest thing in the world, comparing to what they have, but their defense is so good that what they say, defense wins championships. Because there's times where they'll be like, they shut down opponents, and you're just like, dang man, like that's a lot. There's a lot of zeros on this board here if you look at their schedule scoring. Like even they just had one this weekend when they played Ole Miss the first game. They held Kentucky to only 3 runs in their Saturday and Sunday games and 2 runs in their Friday game. So yeah, like they're all like it's gonna be interesting to see. But the Cajuns themselves, they're looking like they're gonna have a good run themselves here. But I think they're gonna get it dialed in. I think they'll get straight here. I was a little bit worried about the defense, but I think their defense will come around here. And they're looking better since the Oklahoma game. So that's I think they needed a big win to get their confidence back. So thank you for tuning into the Fishbowl Radio, everybody, and we'll see you here next time on the Fishbowl Radio.